So, okay, how is Ukraine bombing Russia and Moscow with hundreds of drones, and how will Putin's parade turn into a defeat and a disaster for him? It's my wishes. Can it be realistic? We'll discuss right now. My name is Irina Uzlova, and today with us is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel RashkinReport and RashkinReport in English, and also local elected official in Wisconsin. Yuri, hello, glad to see you. Thank you for joining us again and again.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we see legendary numbers of drones which attacked Russian Federation and exactly Moscow. 524 drones, and even these numbers was announced by Ministry of Defense, Russian Federation. So maybe even more drones attacked Russia today and for all this week before that parade May 9th. Yuri, how does this process demonstrate weakness of Putin's regime and Putin's borders and his air and all of this?
Well, I feel like you just cut to the chase, because it is a demonstration of weakness, although I was thinking this is a demonstration of Ukrainian strength.
Yes.
Because it's a flip side, but it's more or less the same thing, because one has to be strong in this world, one, I guess, has to be weak. So weak is Russia, because we see by what's about to happen on May 9th with the parade and everything that already we have leaders who are bowing out, who are saying, no, thank you. No red square for me. And maybe it's because the weather, maybe it's because they're not feeling well, maybe it's because Ukrainian drones could be flying, buzzing by. Who knows? But we see that I think the latest is that Azerbaijani leader, Mr. Aliyev, bowed out and said he won't be coming to Putin's, I don't dare to call it celebration, Победобесие, madness about victory that is about to take place. But we don't even know in the end who is going to be there. Are they going to be real people? Maybe this is going to be one of those opportunities where Putin can send one of his clownish twins to stand in for him, because all that will be done is to stand and wave, and they, I'm sure, have people who look like Putin that they can use for those moments. So it's kind of a show, and it's at the same time, I feel almost like a Olympiad of authoritarian states, where they're all getting together to show that you have these people who want to be dictators and fancy themselves to be authoritarian and strong leaders in this kind of a Russian universe, and they want to stand next to Putin. You almost wonder if they're going to have like Olympic, authoritarian games, or they can, maybe compete in torture techniques, or who knows. But the reality is that Russia is actually quite weak. And celebrating Russian weakness right now on its holiday of May 9th, which is nobody else's holiday, because even Donald Trump is changing the date of the end of World War II from, I guess, September 2nd, which is when World War II ended, because United States completed the defeat of Japan, to May 8th, because that's when Hitler lost in Europe. But even that date isn't the Russian date, which is May 9th. So it's Putin's holiday. And who is going to gather there, what they're going to be showing themselves off, and to what extent I think Trump himself wished he could have been there, and he couldn't, because celebrating Russian weakness, as I was saying, it's 3 years that Russia spent trying to do something that they couldn't do in 3 days. And what is there to celebrate? How many hundreds of thousands of Russian men and everything else that has been killed because of on Russian side? How is this a show of strength? That's what I guess I just don't understand, because Russia was supposed to do this far faster. But Donald Trump would still want to be there. He's still very much interested in having good relations with Vladimir Putin, no matter what. His situation may have changed a little bit. He's currently more consumed with trying to see if he can get Canada, because when you're a big celebrity, you can grab things. And he's trying to get Canada, and Canada says, no, we're not. Some things are not for sale, Mr. Trump. Trump. He's like, yeah, I know. So certain things. I wonder what things are not for sale with Mr. Trump. Maybe with real estate, he feels that certain things truly are not for sale, but beyond real estate, who knows? May 9th is a huge holiday in Russia. And to some extent, we're almost in the West. We do not understand properly how big that holiday is in Russia, what significance it is. It's kind of like code that we are just not catching. The same way when Trump agrees to a hockey match between NHL or American hockey players and Russian hockey players. To Americans, it means hardly anything, nothing. But to Russian ear, it sounds like victory in a propaganda war because Putin values hockey so much. He has his own league. So it's a very specific code that is being spoken here. And to be next to Putin, to show that you are there with him on May 9th, is a kind of a homage, paying respect to Putin. And Trump understands respect, and he wants to pay respect to the man that the one man he seems to truly respect in this world, Vladimir Putin. So he wishes he could have been there. But guess what? He can't. You know why? Because Ukraine. Because Ukraine is strong, and Ukraine didn't allow him such opportunity. Oh, well.
But we discussed these days, that Trump declares May 8th Victory Day over Nazism in World War II, and now officially, not only in his post in Truth Social, Donald Trump officially declared this day, and at the same time, he didn't forget to remind of his main mission in office, the mission of a peacemaker. The proclamation also mentions that the U.S. loses in World War II. More than 250,000 Americans died fighting the Nazi regime. Without these victims, they say, this war would not have been won, and the modern world would look completely different. Is Putin crying about this or no? And about what this decision by Donald Trump?
I honestly just look at this as an American, and it is so, it really bothers me a lot, almost on the level when we discussed this, I feel, in the past, so I don't want to belabor the point, but it is terribly disrespectful to our veterans. Those that fought in the Pacific, and those that those that died, those that were captured, those that suffered, everybody who died during the nuclear attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, those were serious war, events. And to say that this somehow happened outside of the war, that is really interesting approach. But it seems to be a pattern emerging where we see that it's much easier to make victorious statements and to battle maps than it is to actually start wars and wars maybe by defeat, but Donald Trump doesn't seem to be a warrior president. He seems more to be of a warrior against like maps. And so we see that he has changed the date of the war ending in history books. But that doesn't really, that just makes him look foolish, but it doesn't really kill people. That's like not actual war. So that's, I guess, kind of a compromise. Or when he moved a sign of American embassy to Jerusalem, it was a small but powerful change. And these small but powerful gestures, I guess is the term, gestures that Donald Trump specializes in, such as what we're seeing right now with the Gulf of Persia, which is now, according to Trump, Gulf of Arabia. We know Gulf of Mexico is now Gulf of America, according to Trump. I think that there's really interesting opportunities that Trump administration should explore, because perhaps rather than fighting, Iran, we can just rename them. Let's call them, Trump land on maps, on all the maps. So when Iran opens their computer, their phones, whatever they use maps, they go, ooh, we're now Trump land. Oh, we didn't know. I guess we lost. Or rename Tehran into Trump town. And then it will be just, imagine how Iranians will feel when they will look at their phones and realize that they're now called something entirely different. I think that this trolling in chief approach is fun for some people because it's kind of laughable and it's kind of humorous, and you go, hey, look what we did. But it's also kind of destroying reputation of the United States as like an adult nation, and it's kind of the kind of stuff that turns us into a banana republic, where you have people who rewrite history books, people who change maps according to their desires. We are, just a couple of weeks away, it seems like, from, well, I was going to say a monument to Donald Trump, but really we're going to have supposedly a parade now for his birthday. So I think that these kinds of glorification exercises, at least they're being kept to like maps and history books. But even there, it is doing tremendous damage to the reputation of the United States.
Yuri, we joked today that if Vice President of the US, J.D. Vance, had come to the parade, a disaster would have been inevitable for Russia, because when he was visiting the Vatican, the Pope Francis died. When J.D. Vance was visiting India, a war between India and Pakistan soon broke out. So how do you assess this idea?
Well, I think that on one hand, we shouldn't overestimate the significance of one person. On the other hand, we shouldn't underestimate the things that one person can say or do. And I think that it is entirely possible that the kinds of things, I don't know what J.D. Vance said to the Pope, like, and how Pope understood it and what conclusions Pope made out of it, that he decided there was time to go. But I think that it is entirely possible that J.D. Vance did say something in India that was interpreted in such a way that India decided to take this next step. Because that just stands to reason, because the one big country, the superpower in this world that seems to have prevented wars from all over the place from breaking out, all over the place, including India and Pakistan, was the United States. And if the United States is going to be like, oh, we don't care, you do you, we are fine, we've got our own beautiful ocean to keep us away, whatever you do is your business. Maybe that's what was asked, maybe that's what was said, we don't know, but at least that matches generally with the attitude of this administration, which is, we just don't give a damn. If you're gonna, if you want to do business with us, bring us some money, we have some, opportunities to make some money. Beyond that, you do you. And I think you do you in India might very well mean a war against Pakistan. And I think it's interesting when we start hearing about how Pakistan is lobbying for President Trump's support, going through, I'm trying to remember, because I think Vice President's wife is supposed to be playing some kind of a role in this lobbying effort, I think she's on part of India. So it's not really politics. It's like palace intrigue and everybody kind of running around the throne and trying to find their way next to the czar, who is saying, it's Donald Trump, who said, I'm not thinking about third term because I have people who can take over. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. What is that but an opportunity for a board leader to just look at these two guys to fight among each other and just kind of keep them amused? This is not very serious situation that we find ourselves in. And the fact that one of them, J.D. Vance, has such a strong effect on people and policy, and wars are breaking out, I think it's really just, that's how this administration is. It's this willful ignorance and trying to do things with eyes closed. And, that's not going to protect anybody. Just it's going to, create... I don't know, it's, I don't want to say that, like, I don't want J.D. Vance to go and visit. No, I think maybe J.D. Vance should be sent to Red Square on May 9th. Maybe that's where J.D. Vance is supposed to be, or meant to be all along.
Yuri, what signals do we have from Steve Witkoff, which became an officially special envoy by Donald Trump? Why? For what?
I think with Mr. Witkoff, it's interesting because a few days ago, a story came out in New York Post that really took apart his efforts and his abilities and his lack of experience, and the fact that he's being called an idiot by people who know him. Yes. And we seem to kind of haven't heard from Mr. Witkoff after that. It hasn't been that long, and perhaps he's just recuperating from a hot tub in Kremlin. I don't know. But he certainly has shown himself to be somebody who at the same time combines lack of experience and knowledge with good proximity to President Trump and having his ear. What's interesting over here is that President Trump has such a reputation for being easily persuadable and speaking the things that the last person who spoke to him said to him, that it is becoming more and more important to be the person in his ear. This is why Elon Musk has accomplished so much while living practically in the room next door to the president. But now, alas, the company Tesla is falling apart, and Mr. Musk has to go. Oh well. But it's interesting to see that Putin is thinking that he would like to talk to Trump a little up close here and personal, because it seems that Donald Trump is getting out of hand a little bit. He's saying to Ukraine that he can do business with them, 50 million here, 350 million over there. It's not really, Mr. Witkoff is not doing what he was supposed to be doing, because this shuttling portraits back and forth business is fun and pleasure, but it's not getting the job done, which is how is Ukraine surrendering yesterday. And since that is not happening, then they're shifting into a different approach, and different approach is, oh, look at this. While we weren't looking, Donald Trump decided to make some money from Ukraine. He decided to sell him something. Who could have figured that he would go for that kind of an idea? But now that he thinks that he can do business with Ukraine, that really is great, because even though the amount of aid is minuscule, it shows that Donald Trump recognizes that Ukraine is a country, is a state with which he can make agreements and with which he can do business. Those are terrible ideas as far as Russia is concerned. So I think it is really very much right now on Putin's now wish list to quickly talk to Donald Trump so that he would stop saying all these strange things. So it seems like perhaps Mr. Steve Witkoff, while delivering and shuttling back and forth bullet points and portraits, didn't accomplish that goal either, because we see that Donald Trump is perhaps he's more eager for profit right now than he is thinking about his own long-term interests of being on good terms with Putin. It's amazing, really.
Really awesome, but in a bad sense of these words.
Horrifically awesome, unbelievably terrible. Yes, it's one of those things, because so much is at stake. We're speaking about so many millions and billions of lives that are here involved. But at the same time, it's almost like if you don't smile, I don't know how else to deal with this sometimes.
Yes, but insane, realistic. J.D. Vance, which we mentioned about him, he noticed, and it's like a big, wonderful thing too, that Russia's demands to end war in Ukraine are too much. Russia is asking for too much. Notice J.D. Vance. How did he understand this fact, and what steps will be next?
It's hard to say exactly what J.D. Vance is trying to accomplish, because we see, again, going back to the results of his activity, is he doing this on purpose or what's going on? We know that he's generally not very well informed and definitely not very influential in the administration. The big scandal with Signal showed us that Stephen Miller, for instance, is a far more influential person in the administration than the vice president. But if he's saying something, it means that it is something that is benefiting somebody that he likes. And we know the kinds of people that he likes, so we know he's trying to say something that they're gonna like. And then we can just kind of try to unwind and figure out why is he saying this particular thing. Is he trying to negotiate for a better deal for throwing away surrendering Ukraine? Is he trying to get a point across that we need to get something done with the peace process because Donald Trump is looking like a loser who cannot get a deal done with anybody but a country under duress? Maybe, I don't know what point he's trying to accomplish, and I think that's why I'm really fascinated by how bad communication appears to be between Kremlin and White House, considering how close they are ideologically aligned. It seems like there's enough foolish people involved evolve. The signals keep getting tossed and crossed, and there isn't quite clear understanding. Plus, Donald Trump, you never know what movie he's going to watch next and what tweet he's going to come up with after that.
You understand. And back to Xi Jinping topic, can we say that Chinese leader went to Moscow to show who is really the daddy there?
I think that I don't like to say good things about Putin, and this is not a good thing, but this is definitely an admittance of strength, I feel, because of the dynamic that we're observing, where President of the United States is looking up at so-called president of so-called Russian Federation. And at the same time, we see that there is a trade war between China and Russia, China and United States. And even though this is hurting price of oil and therefore is hurting Russian economy, this is still a situation where Putin has a lot of leverage because he is on good terms with China, as we clearly see. And also, President of the United States is looking up at him. So Putin can help these to try to find a way through there, however he chooses to navigate that relationship. But I think it is admittance of the relevance and the upswing in the influence that Putin is currently experiencing. I have to remind myself that this too shall pass, because this is generally very unpleasant to observe and even less pleasant to admit. But in this scenario, Putin has a lot of leverage. Now, how this is going to be used and what China is able and willing to provide, considering that its own economy is suffering consequences of a trade war with the United States, and those ships that are sitting and waiting to be loaded with things that are not likely to be loaded on the ships if United States doesn't doesn't change its tariffs policy, is going to have a tremendous consequence, and for Chinese economy as well as for American store shelves. And that's why it's particularly interesting that on Saturday there's supposed to be finally first time communication between U.S. and China in Switzerland, of all places, which seems to be the popular place for people to move their money from United States, because they feel like that is not the place to be, United States, and Switzerland is. So this is apparently where Trump and, well, the two delegations from China and America, United States, are going to finally talk about something. That's well, what can I say? It's going to be awfully close to May 9th. It's going to be well, it's going to be May. It's going to be 10th. So they're going to be getting together then and discussing. And of course, at that point, the Chinese delegation will be well acquainted with what happened between Putin and Xi Jinping prior to that point. So again, Putin is in a position of a driver in this, and so let's see how he chooses to use this power that he has now acquired. He may not be able to fully utilize it because there could be some institutional restrictions on some of the things that he's able to do, but his intentions should show themselves quite clearly very soon, I would think.
Can they start to get a new war against, for example, one of small countries, how they proclaimed it, of NATO?
I think that China has not shown themselves to be militarily aggressive. I mean, their army is big. They're showing their saber rattling just fine, but they still haven't even taken Taiwan. Now, could they do it at any point and change their outlook and do it? Yeah, I mean, they could, but so far they haven't done it. So based on that, we'll presume that that could be a case for the foreseeable future until we know otherwise. On the other hand, Russia attacks all its neighbors all the time in one way or another. So to imagine that Russia is going to continue with some kind of war, and therefore it needs Chinese war machine to be the arsenal of Russian aggression, that is entirely possible. And perhaps those are going to be the orders that now that China is not busy making little things for Americans, that perhaps China can make things that Russia can use to make things, to attack, to continue its warring business, which seems to be the only business Russia seems to be good at or interested in, I should say, is war. And so maybe China can help them this way. But the fact that Russia, it seems practically unable to stop for more than 3 days for a big drunk fest about a Victory Day celebration. But beyond that, they are kind of stuck in a war mode and really can't stop. I think it's just a question of how can that warmongering can be facilitated. And China can go a long way towards facilitating that warmongering by Russia.
And Donald Trump proclaimed that it's time to make decisions about the war in Ukraine. Oh, you see, great decisions will come soon.
I think that it's time. Of course it's time. It should have been time 3 years ago, like not to start the war. There's lots of time to make right decisions, and we see that Vladimir Putin doesn't make those decisions, and Donald Trump specializes in bad ideas. So it's a thing. But it's important to admit that this administration is trying to wash its hands off Ukraine and to shift Ukraine from being a country that we support for our national interest, that we're helping without asking for anything in return, to a country that's just like any other country that is looking to buy some of our weapons and get in line, and we'll see what we want to do about it. And that's not really a situation in which the United States is going to command a lot of respect. And there's many different ways of losing respect. One of these ways is not to be involved. And when Trump administration chooses to remove itself, and thus it feels to do a good thing, favor practically for Russia by saying, hey, we're not helping Ukraine anymore, they also lose leverage with Ukraine. And so Ukraine doesn't really have to listen as much and as closely to America, especially when American interests really don't align with Ukrainian interests, because Ukraine is not interested, as far as I can tell, is not interested in surrender to Russia. And that's what Donald Trump would like it very much to do. I'm sorry, he means peace. But when he says peace, he means capitulate. And since Ukraine is not able to do that, and Trump is not willing to provide the needed assistance, then Ukraine is going to find, I would presume, aid somewhere else. There's other countries that are concerned about Russia. There's a new leadership in Germany. There's a lot of opportunities that, of course, this administration will miss, because this administration specializes in missing opportunities as well as bad ideas. For instance, just the other day, new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, was in the White House. Could this have been an opportunity to make a trade deal? Yes, it was an opportunity to make a trade deal, because you know what? A deal would be really good right now for a president that cannot sign a deal with anybody. But instead, Donald Trump talked about how Canada should become a 51st state. I guess when he gets an idea, he doesn't let it go. But it doesn't mean that it's going to end well. Again, his 6 bankruptcies and how many divorces, kind of highlight that fact.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, for your time, for your professional opinions. See you next week. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English, was with us. My name is Irina Uzlova. Thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channels. We have active link right here, and do it right now. See you next week. Take care.